Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. With Gasly to Alpine seemingly set in stone at the present time, Mercedes have also revealed that they understand to some degree what they're planning to do with their car concept next year, and also confirming some further updates to come for the end of the season. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, Alex Albon, thankfully all well and good out of surgery. He's feeling okay, at least back at I believe his home in Monaco. Says that yes, he is still planning to get up there in time for Singapore. Whether he can achieve that, because one of the most physical races of the entire season, remains to be seen. Maybe Nick de Vries will need to sub in again, but yeah, of course, wishing Alex Albon the best. Now, lots of drama, of course, about this Colton Herta thing. They were trying the Red Bull team to get him into the AlphaTauri seat. Now, they've effectively given up because the super license seems too hard to work around. Herta only had 32 points, he needed 40. The idea of the super license was to prevent drivers that weren't experienced enough from getting seats, effectively in response to Verstappen getting into a car when he was 17. You know, they think, okay, maybe he should have been an F2 for one season and then got in. Maybe a good idea to some degree to prevent the paid drivers coming in quite the same numbers that they have done, but the problem is that it's just been badly executed. Like IndyCar and American Driver Series in general are like criminally underrated, I think, to the point where Colton Herta doesn't even have enough points to compete here. And other IndyCar drivers wading in and saying, damn right, F1 is an elitist sport, they don't want us. Remember that. They want US companies' money, they want wealthy US individuals' money, they don't care about the rest. Always has been that way, always will be, he says. So quite the statement here, really. And of course, even Zach Brown from McLaren saying that the rules need to change because even Kimi Räikkönen and Max Verstappen, based on the way the rules currently work, wouldn't have been eligible if they were in place when they made their debut. So I definitely think there's got to be some consideration here. I thought that there would be some reconsideration maybe after this drama initially went down, and now you've got team owners, you've got all the drivers talking about it, so I'm sure there should be some sort of review going forwards. But of course, look, AlphaTauri will need to find another driver, and apparently the driver that Helmut Marko has been talking to is Nick de Vries. So Gasly seemingly is one step closer to joining Alpine because of course they needed a replacement. They wanted Colton Herta, they can't get him now because they can't work around the super license drama. Therefore, Nick de Vries, I guess after his performance at Monza, is the guy they want in an AlphaTauri seat. So he apparently will be joining them alongside Yuki Tsunoda next season. Now, with that move, Gasly to Alpine, if it does go through, there are still some question marks. Who's going to be in the Haas? Who's going to be in the Williams? Because Nicholas Latifi, he's going to be gone. And if Nick de Vries isn't going to Williams, then of course they need a driver. Apparently, the two targets are either Mick Schumacher or Logan Sargent, their American Formula 2 driver for Williams. Those are the two contenders, with de Vries in talks with Red Bull to join AlphaTauri. So that's a possibility. Also could stay at Haas, Mick Schumacher, but that's far from guaranteed right now. And even some sources pretty much confirming that AlphaTauri and Nick de Vries have agreed to a deal where he will move alongside Yuki Tsunoda and therefore Gasly can go to Alpine. So some are saying this is set in stone and done effectively, to which point that will be the driver lineup for next season. What does this mean for the rest of the grid? Well, de Vries plus Tsunoda and AlphaTauri, Gasly plus Ocon and Alpine. Then Williams will be Albon plus either Mick Schumacher or Logan Sargent, and then Mick Schumacher will either be at Williams or Haas, you would imagine, depending on which way that goes. He could be at neither if Sargent and Giovinazzi get the seats respectively, but this is the way, to our present understanding, that the driver drama is finishing up for this kind of silly season type stuff. Yeah, interesting stuff, right? If de Vries does go to AlphaTauri, Gasly to Alpine, I think I'm happy for him. If he does get that seat, there's going to be fireworks in that French team. There is no doubt about it. Let's talk about the Mercedes question marks that they have for not only the rest of this season, but also next season. We've heard many talking points from Hamilton, Russell, Wolff about what exactly is going on with their car concept next year. Is it going to come out next season out of the garage looking like a Mercedes W13 from this season with the kind of slim side pods, or is it going to be a Red Bull copy, a Ferrari copy? What are they deciding to do? Now, Mercedes apparently understands to a certain extent what needs to be changed, but they don't understand everything seemingly yet. So a big month or two for the Mercedes guys to figure out what they do with this car, how they can fix the issues that they have had to make sure that it's actually competitive on every track that they go to, right? As Toto Wolff goes on to say, our simulations predicted this weekend that we wouldn't be so good in Monza, and the simulations were correct, right? Which I suppose might be one of the first times this season where what the computer said the car would do, the car actually did, which is, maybe a good sign to some degree, but I think anyone could have told you that a W13 wouldn't have been so good around Monza with a straight line speed deficit, and seems only to be particularly good in the slower corners, of course, and as Toto Wolff goes on to say, say, it's not like we've found the holy grail to unlocking the entire car, but to a certain extent, we understand what we need to do differently with next year's car. The next 1 or 2 months will be a critical phase in this regard, saying that like it's not one component, it's various pieces of the puzzle that interact with each other. So admitting to some degree they made many mistakes with their design. So yeah, what do you guys expect Mercedes to come out with next season? I would be kind of surprised if they do copy the Red Bull or the Ferrari concepts. Like, I know that Hamilton has said that, look guys, don't be arrogant about our design being the best. If it's not the best, let's change it up, because like it can work, the Mercedes around circuits like Zandvoort, Budapest, it can look good, but it's just not good at the majority of circuits, which is the major downside. Doesn't seem to be particularly good over the bumps either. The higher speed corners doesn't work at either. So I mean, yes, on paper Singapore for this year's car should be better, but they're going to have to make a call. If they understand to a certain degree what they've got to change, but they've got to make that call relatively quickly, because there are also some regulation changes for next season, raising of the floor for example. So there's a lot of things for Mercedes to consider. Now, speaking of this year's car and Singapore coming up, they reckon that, okay, yes, it's a maximum downforce circuit, and the other positive for Mercedes is that pretty much all the corners are 90 degrees. You go either right to left or left to right, and that's pretty much how the corners work, because it's a street circuit. Now, the Mercedes has a pretty tiny working window. They can only get the car into, well, actually working rather well in very specific circumstances. Now, you don't have to make as many compromises as is described here in the article when setting up for just one type of corners. For example, in Spa, you've got, 300 kilometers an hour corners, and you've got 70 kph corners. So, it's obviously difficult to set up a car for both circumstances. The Mercedes doesn't do that particularly well. Now, as Total Wolf does say, though, the bumps speak against us. We still believe Singapore will be one of our better circuits, but at the same time, we want to be careful with our forecast. So saying that, yes, the Mercedes should be better around there, but it's far from guaranteed they'll be that good. And also confirming that indeed Mercedes will continue to equip the Silver Arrow with further parts. So they will bring some upgrades still to the final couple of races. Nothing major, but smaller parts. Even Russell says maybe Austin in Kota, right? It suits them rather well in a few weeks' time. Like, who knows what happens, right? But their intention seemingly is here with the updates is just to try and make the car as good as it can be, so they can understand what is wrong with it effectively to the best of their abilities. If you don't try and fix the current issues, they're not going to be able to understand what exactly to change next year. So I guess that's really the plan here, rather than necessarily to win races. And this is kind of what George Russell has gone on to say as well. He was kind of talking about potentially, changing their radical design for 2023, saying Russell said nothing is off the table. For sure, we've got a pretty unique design with the side pods. It's not off the cards that we continue with that design, but it's equally not off the cards that we will completely change philosophy. So this is rather interesting, especially because, like, Russell's a pretty good PR guy. He's not going to say anything that's going to give anything away necessarily, at least a large part of the time. He knows what he's doing in that sense. He's well media trained, let's just say. Now, Toto Wolff is saying on one side, they've got a clear direction to some degree on what they want to do with their car, but Russell's saying that he's got no idea which direction they're going in terms of concept. So either he has a decent idea and he doesn't want to say, or he actually is clueless as to what they're planning to do. But ultimately, whether we do have the wide side pods or narrow side pods, that isn't the performance differentiator. There is more to it. So saying that it's not really the side pod design that's key, it's other elements of the car. So that's why I'd kind of expect the side pods to stay as they are, because obviously Mercedes believed when they first put this car into their wind tunnel and into their simulators before the season began that it was a championship winner. Turned out not to be the case, largely because of their deficit on the higher speed circuits and the bumpier circuits, of which Singapore will be one. So we'll see how that treats them. Whether they have to significantly raise the right height of the car, costing them downforce, costing them aerodynamic drag in a straight line. The Red Bull and the Ferrari to some degree seem to be pretty good everywhere. The only thing Mercedes has going for it is that it actually manages its tyres very well. We've seen that over the last few races, probably better than any car, certainly better than the Ferrari, right? So over races where strategy is more important, and where in Zandvoort, of course, they did their pretty incredible one-stop they were going to pull off, which no other team I think could have managed. That is really the only redeeming factor of this year's car. And as he goes on to say, look, there's no overnight solution. We know why we weren't competitive in Monza and Spa, and we were in Zandvoort and Budapest, but that doesn't mean we can solve the issues overnight. We've got to keep on developing this car, and next year will sort of be an evolution of this, and I think now we have a totally clear direction of how to develop. So George Russell says we have a totally clear direction. Toto Wolff says we understand our direction to some degree. Like, some mixed signals coming out of the Mercedes camp, but thought it was an interesting statement here from Russell just to kind of confirm to some extent that they know what they're doing. They believe they understand the cause of their issues. They're probably not going to go outright and say, yeah, we absolutely understand everything. We've got it. It's all locked down, boys. And next year we're going to be a scary force again. They're, of course, going to tiptoe around and say, yeah, we're not really so sure. We have some idea. But yeah, maybe behind the scenes, they're actually pretty confident. They know the key issues and they know how to solve them. Whether bringing these further upgrades that they plan to over the next couple of races will either help them with the understanding for what they should do with next year's car, or whether they can actually help deliver results in Singapore or beyond. Of course, yeah, a couple of years ago now, 2017, I'm pretty sure it was. Some of you may remember the Verstappen, Kimi Raikkonen, Sebastian Vettel first lap instance where Hamilton went on to win the race. He might be hoping for something similar at the front of the grids if there's a chance for Mercedes and Hamilton or Russell to win this race in Singapore and at some of the other races to come as well. But very much into your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.